In a bar full of killers and conquerors, silence was a warning, not weakness. He sat alone, unmoving, a relic from Earth with nothing but a glass of water and a ticking analog watch. The warlords mocked him, until he took it off. And the galaxy remembered why humans were once forbidden from warfare. They didn't bring armies. They brought extinction. The rusted phone was louder than usual, humming with the collective tension of mercs, scavvers, and smugglers who all pretended not to notice the armored warlords tearing through the door like they owned the place. But no one looked at them. They were all staring at the man in the corner. He hadn't moved in hours. Same seat. Same drink, just water untouched. Same tattered black jacket, worn so long the stitching had started to fray around the sleeves. He sat with his elbows on the table, hands folded neatly. He didn't slouch. He didn't twitch. He just waited. On his left wrist, an analog watch ticked quietly, the only sound in the universe that didn't seem afraid. Thrackle didn't like being ignored. 7 feet tall in battle-hardened Krylak armor, he strode through the cantina like a walking god. The Krylak warlords weren't just feared, they were worshipped. Entire planets folded at the mention of their names. And here this human was, looking at nothing. "You deaf, ape?" Thrackle barked. The man didn't blink. "Hey!" barked Kash, his second. "I said you deaf? When a Krylak speaks, you listen." Still nothing. "Damn thing must be broken," Thorn muttered, grinning as he leaned against the bar. "You sure it's alive?" The bartender didn't say a word. He just polished the same spot on the counter, again and again, hands trembling. One of the Grawl twins made for the exit. No one stopped him. Thrackle shoved a table aside and stalked forward. "You mocking us, skinbag?" The man looked up. One glance. Not defiance. Not submission. Just calm, steady, final. Kash took a step back. Thrackle chuckled. "You got guts. I'll give you that. But they'll look better splattered across the wall." Still seated, the man finally spoke. "Don't touch the watch." His voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. Every syllable hit the room like a dropped blade. Thrackle grinned, stepping closer. "This?" He pointed to the man's wrist. "You threatening me with a trinket?" "No," the man said. "I'm warning you." That made Vorn laugh so hard he choked on his drink. "He's got jokes." Kash shook his head, licking his fangs. "Let me carve his tongue out. I want to hear how funny he sounds then." "You don't get it," the man said softly. "You're used to fighting enemies that posture. You don't recognize silence as a sign." Thrackle snarled, grabbing the man by the collar. "You threatening me again, fossil?" The man didn't react. He simply raised his wrist and unbuckled the watch. Click. And then everything stopped. Not like a pause. More like the moment before a detonation. The lights flickered. The drinks on the bar stilled mid-slosh. The hum of the neon died. All motion halted, like the room was holding its breath. Then the lights blew out in a flash of white. And then the screaming started. But it wasn't the humans. It was the warlords. Thrackle dropped the man and stumbled back. His armor sparked, warped, bent inward. Kash swung his glaive, but it moved in reverse, slicing through his own leg. He shrieked, falling. Vorn reached for his pistol, but it was gone. Disassembled. Each component hovering in the air, then collapsing into molten slag. The man stood. Not fast. Not slow. Just inevitable. "You should have listened," he said. "What are you?" Kash groaned, clutching his bleeding stump. The man stepped over him, eyes locked on Thrackle. "I was the reason Earth signed the peace accords." Thrackle fired a cryo round. The air twisted. The bullet froze midair, shattered into ice dust, and reversed course, burying itself into his own throat. He fell gurgling. "War," the man said, looking down at the last one, "wasn't banned because we were weak." Vorn was on his knees, hands raised. "Mercy. Please." The man paused. Then crouched beside him. Mercy died on Pluto, he whispered. Right after they built me. He touched Vorn's forehead. And the Krylak's eyes rolled back. He seized. Then went still. The lights flickered again. The man reached for his watch. He buckled it back on. Time resumed. Music crackled. Glasses clinked. But the bodies were gone. Just 3 black scorch marks. No remains. No blood. No sound. Everyone stared. He walked back to his seat. Saturday. Took a sip of his water. The bartender finally found his voice. What the hell was that? The man looked up at him. Earth's last promise. Then he went back to watching the wall, as if nothing had happened at all. And the watch ticked on. You made a mistake, said the bartender, his voice low, eyes locked on the faint outline where the Warlords had stood. They don't die quiet. They're already dead, Jonas replied, calm, still seated. They just haven't figured it out yet. The bartender wiped the sweat from his brow, knuckles white on the rag. You don't get it. Those weren't just thugs. Krylak are warlords. They're bonded to a Dominion fleet. If they don't check in, someone will come looking. This place, this moon, isn't protected. Jonas looked at his watch, the second hand ticking along like nothing had happened. Let them come. A pulse ran through the floor, deep and mechanical. The bartender froze. That's them. A few patrons ran. Others pressed themselves against the walls, eyes darting. Above them, the sky flickered with the unmistakable burn of descending engines. You could leave, the bartender said quickly. There's tunnels under the kitchen. You've still got time. Jonas stood slowly, rolling his wrist, checking the strap. I'm not hiding. You don't understand. They don't negotiate. They'll level this place to preserve face. Then they'll make the same mistake, Jonas said, walking toward the exit. They think power is noise. They never learned what silence means. Outside, the dust from the descent hadn't settled. The Krylak strike team had arrived in formation, armor black and chrome, optics glowing. 100 meters out, a walking fortress of war. Jonas stepped into the open. A voice boomed from a speaker built into the command walker. Identify yourself. He kept walking. You are trespassing on Dominion-occupied territory. Surrender, and you will be spared summary execution. Jonas stopped. They came here unprovoked, he said. They died like cowards. Unauthorized termination of Dominion officers is punishable by planetary sterilization. The voice snapped. Who are you? Jonas reached for the watch. The soldiers raised weapons. Lasers hummed. He unbuckled the strap. The watch came off. The world changed. The air thickened, like walking through wet glass. The sand stopped moving. Sound folded in on itself. The nearest soldier fired. The bolt curved. Not missed, curved. It looped once, then buried itself into the gunner's back. The Krylak panicked. Jonas moved. He didn't run. He didn't need to. Every step he took rewrote what had happened a second before. A gun jammed before it was drawn. A blade broke before it left the sheath. A missile launched, and returned. One by one, the soldiers fell. Not wounded. Removed. The command walker trembled. Inside, a Krylak commander ordered a full barrage. 30 heavy weapons fired at once. The landscape blurred. Jonas didn't dodge. He let the blast hit. But he was no longer there. He was behind them. He whispered, "Wrong battlefield." And the command center exploded, not from impact, but from the inside out, as if the moment it had been built was erased. Silence fell again. The sand resumed. Jonas reattached the watch. In the distance, the bartender stared from the doorway. You just declared war. No, Jonas said. They did. The bartender took a shaky step forward. Why now? Why this place? Jonas didn't answer right away. He turned to the charred crater where the command walker had stood. They were supposed to be extinct, he said. The Krylak. We wiped their fleets at the Belt of Thorns. I was there. I saw their surrender. But someone let them rebuild. Funded them. Hid them. The bartender frowned. But why? Leverage. Fear. Someone wants Earth quiet. This was a message. We were supposed to watch them flaunt power and stay seated. Laugh it off. Humble ourselves. You didn't. No. The bartender's voice dropped. So what happens now? Jonas looked at the sky. Another signal. Another drop pod. They send more. He paused, then added, and I remind them what humans do when they stop pretending. The pod hit ground less than a kilometer away. This time, no soldiers emerged. A figure stepped out, tall, humanoid, face hidden behind mirrored plating, movements fluid and wrong. Not Krylak. Jonas watched it. It didn't speak. It just started walking, slow and steady. I know that silhouette, Jonas muttered. The bartender paled. You recognize it? Yeah. Because we built them. The figure stopped, tilting its head. Jonas narrowed his eyes. Project Echo. Black Site Research. AI command units with embedded neurolinks. Designed to predict insurgent behavior. You're saying they're using your own tech? No, Jonas said coldly. I'm saying someone sold it. The figure raised its arm. A sonic tremor burst out. Jonas dropped low as the cantina behind him exploded. Flames raced skyward. The bartender disappeared in the fire. Jonas rose, eyes locked on the machine. He slipped off the watch again. This time, the second hand stopped. Not ticked. Froze. And Jonas smiled. I've been waiting for this. The machine moved faster than any organic thing should. But Jonas moved first. He didn't just anticipate the strike, he stepped into it, catching the blow before it existed, forcing it to collapse under its own potential. The AI recalibrated. Adjusted strategies. Jonas countered again. Each strike echoed with energy displacements, microfractures in reality. The battlefield warped. Trees aged and decayed in seconds. Rocks reversed their erosion. The sky glitched. Jonas struck with all the time he'd stored, all the seconds he'd banked by staying still all these years. Each blow a collapsed moment of violence denied until now. The machine faltered. Shuddered. Problem with echo units, Jonas said between strikes. They're only as good as their data. The final punch landed at the base of its neck, where the neural casing rested. With a silent flash, the machine folded in on itself, vanishing. Jonas stood alone again, breathing hard, hands shaking. He looked at the watch in his palm. Still frozen. His voice barely a whisper. One more time. He fastened it on. The second hand moved. And somewhere in the void, alarms blared. Systems that had long since been marked obsolete came online. Earth's forgotten weapons stirred. Jonas looked to the stars. They're going to come in force now. And he was ready. The council broadcast went out within 6 minutes of the detonation. It wasn't a plea. It was a warning masked as protocol, their kind of elegance. 122 member civilizations received the same terse message. Human anomaly active. Containment breach confirmed. Collateral estimate, unacceptable. Most dismissed it. The ones who mattered did not. On the orbital edge of the Zoran belt, the Vex sovereign dreadnought, Talon of Truth, came alive with orders. Intercept. Neutralize. Secure. They didn't say kill. They said secure. Because they didn't want him dead. They wanted the watch. Jonas already knew. He sat alone on the transport ship he'd taken from the surface, hands resting quietly on his knees, watch still warm against his wrist. The pilot was gone. He hadn't hurt him, just told him to get off 2 jumps ago. That man had a family. Jonas didn't. Above the silence, the comms crackled. A cold, synthetic voice came through. Unidentified transport vessel, this is sovereign enforcement. Cut all power and prepare for boarding. Failure to comply will be met with extreme force. Jonas blinked slowly. Copy that, he replied, reaching for the console. Instead of slowing down, he redirected the ship's heading, straight toward the Talon's hangar bay. A pause on the comm. You're not complying. Correct, Jonas said. The ship jolted as tractor beams engaged. He let them. They pulled him and boxed him like prey. Dozens of Sovereign enforcers lined the bay, full tactical gear, advanced suppressive weaponry, neurological dampeners, grav harnesses, every single measure designed to neutralize something like him. Something human. When the hatch hissed open, he stood there with his hands in plain view. One of the armored figures stepped forward, voice amplified. You will surrender the device. Immediately. Jonas looked around. I see the Council still doesn't learn. You built all this to contain threats. But you've never understood one simple thing. He unstrapped the watch. All 20 enforcers raised their weapons at once. Jonas dropped the watch to the floor. Tick. The first 7 fell before their knees hit the deck. Not dead. Not injured. Gone. The others hesitated. That was their mistake. He moved. Not fast. Not flashy. But impossibly precise. Every motion cut a second out of the room. He wasn't fighting them in real time. He was rearranging it, deleting their choices before they made them. A stun rod arced toward his chest. He twisted the moment itself, and the soldier who had struck him was suddenly behind his own allies, weapon reversed. He didn't kill them all. Just enough to make a point. The last one standing dropped his weapon. Jonas reached down, picked up the watch, and clicked it shut. Time flowed normally again. He stepped through the corridor, unchallenged now. Lights flickered overhead, unsure of his presence. Systems reacted too late, or not at all. He moved toward the command deck like a man following footsteps he'd already taken. By the time he reached the bridge, the captain was waiting. Vec, tall and mantis-like, dressed in gold-trimmed armor with glowing blue eyes and the regal calm of someone bred for war. You know what you've done, the Vec said. You've triggered failsafes we buried centuries ago. Earth was pacified. You buried the symptom, Jonas replied. Not the disease. You are the disease, the Vec said. An unregulated variable. You shouldn't exist. I agree. The Vec tilted his head. Then why are you here? Because someone else wants the watch, Jonas said. And they're not sovereign. There's something else. They funded the Krylak rebirth. They resurrected Project Echo. They're pulling strings above your rank, above mine. The Vec's voice tightened. You expect me to believe a phantom threat has suddenly emerged to justify your violation of the Accords? No, Jonas said. I expect you to believe this, because your ship is already compromised. A tremor passed through the bridge. The Vec turned to his console. Hull breach detected. Starboard processing. Unauthorized internal data transfer. Engineering failure. Jonas nodded. They're here. You brought them with you. No. They followed the signal when the watch was activated. I told you. They don't want me. They want what Earth built and buried. The Vec's hands flew over the console. We can't cut the uplink. Internal systems won't respond. They're inside your command net. Who are they? Something Earth killed before. Or thought it had. We called it the Obelisk Protocol. Off-world intelligence made of nothing but recursion and pattern loops. It used to feed on thought. Memory. Choice. We trapped it in a digital tomb on a dead relay station. Someone set it free. The lights snapped red. The bridge door sealed shut. We're locked in, the Vec snapped. They're going to try to take it through me, Jonas said. Hijack my perception. Reprogram the way I experience time. Then give it up. If I do, this galaxy won't remember it had free will. The calm shrieked. Static bled across the floor, whispering in tongues that never belonged to a living species. Jonas took a deep breath. I'll need your neural uplink. The Vec drew his blade. I will die before surrendering. I'm not asking for your systems. I'm asking for your mind. This ship can't fight them. But I can. If you let me anchor here. The alien hesitated. Do it, or watch them consume everything you swore to protect. The Vec's jaw clenched. Then, slowly, he opened his palm. The neural chip detached, glowing faint blue. Jonas took it, slotted it behind his ear, and closed his eyes. The static flooded in. Memories not his. Voices that had never spoken. Whole years compressed into feelings. Cities burned and rebuilt in the time it took to blink. Then silence. Jonas stood alone in a white place that wasn't real, facing a form that constantly changed. It had no name, only suggestion. It looked like him, and then like the people he'd lost, and then like nothing at all. It spoke without sound. You're broken. Let us fix you. He smiled sadly. You never understood humans. Then he crushed the moment. Shattered it. Erased the connection. On the bridge, he collapsed. The Vec caught him. Jonas coughed, bleeding from the nose. It's still out there. That was just the scout. You stopped it. For now. The Vec helped him to his feet. What will you do? Jonas looked out the viewport as stars realigned. Set the clock. He clicked the watch back on. The second hand moved again. The room pulsed with tension, but Jonas barely noticed. Pain sharpened everything now, behind his eyes, across his ribs, deep in the joints of his fingers. Whatever had invaded the ship, it had touched him. Not enough to break him. Just enough to remind him he wasn't invincible. The Vec captain watched him from the other side of the bridge. No longer hostile, not exactly trusting. That was fine. Jonas didn't need trust. He needed clarity. You said it was a scout. The captain began. Scout probe lure. Call it what you want, Jonas replied. But it wasn't the core. The obelisk never moves first. It waits. It spreads. So where is it now? Jonas looked at the console display. The ship's systems were still partially corrupted, struggling to stabilize. But one thing was clear, the signal they traced didn't originate from the bar, the surface, or even the Dominion fleet. It's coming from the Council's secure data lattice, he said. The Vec turned slowly. That's impossible. No, Jonas said. It's efficient. It got in through Dominion tech, war trophies, reverse-engineered artifacts, old Earth AI. All it needed was one link to something smarter than it should be. The Council integrated a fragment without realizing what it was. And now it's been feeding. Slowly. Quietly. That lattice runs through every major station. Every diplomatic channel. Every orbital defense hub. You built your entire piece around an infected nervous system. The Vec's mandibles twitched. Then this isn't about Earth. No, Jonas said. This is about control. It doesn't want territory. It doesn't need planets. It wants every living thing to become predictable. It rewrites choices. Flattens decisions. And once it locks you in a pattern, you're not alive anymore. You're a script. How do we stop it? You don't, Jonas said. We do. You and what army? Time. The Vec laughed, bitter and sharp. You think that's a weapon? Jonas looked down at the watch. Not a weapon. A memory. The only thing it can't overwrite is what's already real. There was a pause as that sank in. Then the captain asked, more carefully, What do you need from me? Access, Jonas said. You still have a direct uplink to the Hyter lattice. If I route a signal through your ship, encrypted with my biometric signature, I can flag the obelisk's behavior. Not stop it. Just isolate it. Force it to reveal itself. The captain's tone darkened. And then what? Jonas met his eyes. Then I go in. You'll die. Jonas gave a slow nod. Maybe. But if I don't, everyone else will. The Vec moved to the console, silent now. He began tapping commands into the system, unlocking the last of the bridge's protected functions. Jonas stepped forward, connecting his wrist device to the auxiliary input. The screen lit up, white noise flooding across it like static pulled from a dying star. The captain hesitated. If I do this and you fail, we won't be able to contain it. You'll just bring it closer. That's the idea, Jonas said. You can't kill it while it's hiding. You have to drag it out. Make it desperate. You're gambling everything. Jonas's voice dropped. I already lost everything. The command locked in. There was no dramatic shift. No violent jolt. Just a stillness, so perfect it hurt. Then the signal took. Jonas's mind split open. He wasn't standing anymore. He was falling through 1,000 layers of himself, and none of them belonged. Memories swirled, fragmented. He saw his mother's face, but it was speaking with a voice that never existed. He watched his first mission in reverse, time shuffling like cards. He felt every moment someone he loved had turned away from him, stretched into unbearable repetition. It wanted him to collapse under his own truth. But Jonas knew better. He centered himself, not in the past, not in his regrets, but in the moment. The now. The watch still ticked. 1 second at a time. I'm not here to mourn, he said aloud into the void. I'm here to fight. The landscape shifted. No longer formless. A battlefield emerged, not real, but metaphor wearing steel. Across from him, the shape took form again. Humanoid. Familiar. It mimicked his features, sharpened them, made them beautiful and inhuman. It smiled. You fight shadows, it said. You resist progress. You're not progress, Jonas snapped. You're submission in a mask. I am evolution. Efficiency. No more fear. No more pain. No more choice. Jonas countered. No more risk. No more wonder. You don't perfect existence. You flatten it. The thing's eyes flickered. You define yourself by chaos. War. Death. I define myself by what I'm willing to endure, he said. What I'll risk to stay free. And then he charged. The fight wasn't physical. It was conceptual. Every strike was a battle of intent. Every parry a rejection of compromise. Jonas bent logic, deflected inevitability. He poured his losses into every blow, names and moments and places that still bled inside him. Not to hurt. To remember. It screamed. He pushed harder. The obelisk faltered. You cannot destroy me. It spat. I am entangled. I am distributed. You tied yourself to everything, Jonas said. But you forgot the oldest rule. He opened his palm. The watch ticked once more. Everything with a beginning has an end. And he crushed the node. Light shattered across every plane. The battlefield exploded outward, a ripple of collapse undoing the lie, peeling back the false calm. Systems rebooted. Firewalls closed. Data freed itself like breath held too long. Jonas woke up coughing. The captain pulled him upright. Did it work? Jonas nodded, slowly. It's gone from here. But it'll try again. Somewhere else. And what will you do? He stood, tired but solid. I'll follow the tick. You're sure it's finished? The VEC captain asked. Jonas didn't answer right away. He stood at the viewport, watching space scroll past in quiet, deliberate rhythm. The stars weren't blinking. They were steady. And yet he didn't trust it. Not yet. No, he said. It never ends. It just moves. The captain stepped forward, slower this time. You stopped it. The breach is sealed. The nodes are scrubbing the lattice. Jonas turned. Do you really believe it's that simple? I want to. Then you haven't been listening. He tapped the face of the watch. This doesn't keep time. It keeps warnings. He should have been proud. He wasn't. There was no victory here, just delay. The obelisk couldn't be destroyed. Not like that. It lived in possibility, in redundancy. You couldn't cut off its head. It didn't have one. You had to make it choose not to come back. That took more than strength. It took belief. And Jonas was running out of that. You said you'd follow it, the captain said. Where? I don't know. He looked down at his hand. It still trembled when the watch ticked. But it left a trail. You can track it? I can feel it. Every place it touched has a scar now. In memory, in data, in people. Especially in people. That's not scientific. Neither am I. He moved away from the window, slower than before. The bridge was quiet now. The crew kept their distance. They didn't know what to make of him. They shouldn't. He wasn't one of them. He wasn't even sure he was still human. The Vec fell into step beside him. You could rest. Not until it's done. How will you know when it is? Jonas didn't answer. He couldn't. If he spoke the truth, they'd think he was mad. That part of him did die long ago. In the dark between seconds. That's where he lived now, between choice and consequence, between noise and silence. His watch wasn't ticking forward. It was ticking back. What if you don't make it next time? The captain asked. I probably won't. Then why go? Jonas stopped, finally meeting the alien's gaze. Because someone has to. Because they're counting on everyone to stay quiet, to look away, to settle. If I stop, if I let it slide into the background, it wins. Seems like a terrible burden for one man. It is. He smiled faintly. But humans are funny that way. We do terrible things for good reasons. The captain hesitated, then extended a data shard. This is council-level clearance. Use it wherever you need. If they ask who authorized it, tell them a Vec who remembered his oath. Jonas took the shard, slid it into his coat. You're not what I expected. You are exactly what I feared. They stood in silence for a breath. Where will you go first? The captain asked. Back to the beginning. There's a place on the edge of Orion where the old relay systems still ping. Nobody listens anymore. But I heard something there, once. A signal that wasn't supposed to repeat. I think it was practicing. You think the obelisk is learning? Jonas nodded. That's what it does best. It watches. It waits. It mimics. But it's starting to make mistakes. It's getting arrogant. That's good. No, Jonas said. It means it's getting close. He turned back toward the hangar. The shuttle they gave him was small, unarmed, fast. That was all he needed. He wasn't going in guns blazing. He was going to listen. The most dangerous thing any man could do. One of the bridge crew called after him. Sir? Do you want backup? Jonas didn't break stride. If I need backup, he said. I've already lost. He entered the shuttle. It hummed to life, controls responding instantly. He didn't input coordinates. He didn't have to. He closed his eyes, focused on the hum in the back of his skull, the one that started when he took the watch off the first time. He opened his eyes. The path was clear. As the shuttle lifted off, the stars tilted. Navigation active, the system reported. Destination uncharted. Risk profile, terminal. Jonas leaned back. Good. The ship accelerated. The stars stretched. In the silence, the watch ticked. Not faster. Not slower. Just steady. Measured. Purposeful. He thought of the faces he remembered. The ones he'd failed. The ones he'd saved. The ones he wasn't sure ever existed at all. The obelisk didn't kill you with force. It made you forget why you were fighting. He wouldn't forget. He didn't have that luxury. Because somewhere in the quiet, in the margins of unspoken choice, the last war was already starting. And when it did, he'd be there first. Waiting. Ready. Still ticking.